More Xbox games get announced for the PlayStation 5, a Game of Thrones AAA game in development, and canceled Twisted Metal project gets more details. All that in today's video. Please like the video, subscribe to never miss a gaming update, and share the video to help grow our community. We'll also be going over the comment of the day. Make sure to leave a comment to get a chance to be featured in the next video. Now let's talk about these games that are coming from Xbox over to PlayStation 5. Playground Games and Turn 10 Studios announced Forza Horizon 5 is launching on PS5 on April 25th for those who get the premium editions. The ones who get the regular editions will be able to access it on April 29th. According to journalist Tom Warren at The Verge, Microsoft is also targeting an April release for the PS5 version of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. In quotes, he says, "We're now waiting to hear if Indiana Jones is going to make Microsoft's target of an April release on PS5, wrote Tom Warren. And that is yet another game that we're looking at in the month of April. Earlier this month, Windows Central's Jez Corden implied Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 could also release for PS5. In quotes, he used pretty soon. And whether that is in the coming months like April is yet to be determined, I guess. Some people might question how on earth are they going to release 3 games in April on PS5. Hellblade 2, Indiana Jones, and Forza 5 all within weeks of each other would probably be a little ridiculous. But you have to remember they did it before with Pentiment, Grounded, Sea of Thieves, and Hi-Fi Rush within a 3-month span. So they dropped a ton of games, in a short period of time. So it's not abnormal for them to do that. But that also means that 5 Xbox games minimum will be making their way to PS5 this year. That includes World's Edge, 4 Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and Age of Mythology Retold. So again, that's quite a lot of games that are going to be making their way over to the PlayStation 5 platform. And this is something that a lot of us are not surprised about because, well, Microsoft told us, hey, we're bringing our games over. That's what we want to do. We want to be a great third-party publisher. And they are delivering on that promise, guys. They are giving us exactly what they told us they would. And nobody should be surprised by that because that's where we're going. And that's why this becomes less and less news as more and more gets revealed. I think the next titles that we're going to be really talking about in a major way as far as like major moves will be Halo and Gears of War, obviously Fable being another one. And when those happen, we'll discuss it, but those are things that are pretty much likely to happen, especially as these games start development at a certain point, right? Where they're just fresh in development and they're planning for the PS5 launches right away, right? So I think day and date will definitely be a case on the PlayStation 5 platform, and that's okay. That's the direction that Xbox wants to go in, so they'll definitely get more consumers and they'll definitely get more people playing their game and the way that they want. This is what Microsoft wants, and that's kind of to be expected at this point. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Will you be buying any of these Xbox games when they come over to the PlayStation 5? Moving on, we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones getting a new game. The Montreal studio that is from Warner Brothers. Obviously, we heard a lot of news about them. Well, apparently they're working on a pitch for a new game based on Game of Thrones, as they want to explore the IP that they have access to, like Hogwarts Legacy, Game of Thrones, big IP that they can access. And Game of Thrones is definitely a big one, especially with them making more spin-offs off of the main series. And with House of the Dragon coming back next year and also getting a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, it makes sense that they want to capitalize on a Game of Thrones title. So they are looking at making a new game for Game of Thrones. It'd be a AAA game, and it's being pitched right now as far as we know. There is no details about it actually being confirmed at all, but according to Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, who has obviously leaked a ton of things, he is saying that they are working on a pitch for a new game focused around the Game of Thrones IP. And obviously, as a massive Game of Thrones fan, a Song of Ice and Fire novels fan, the video games that they have are not that great, right? So if we could get something that is, on a AAA level where they can really explore the lore there and create maybe a new character, I think it could be pretty awesome. Obviously, this is being done by WB, and they don't have a great track record right now. People aren't too happy with them, but if they could deliver on actually completing their games and launching them and not putting some, BS microtransactions, live service spins on them, I think they could do really well, right? Like we see Hogwarts Legacy did really well, and we see them doubling down on that. And apparently it's not going to be a live service spin as far as I read. So it looks like if they go that direction with the Game of Thrones, they could make it pretty awesome, especially because we've seen what they did with Hogwarts Legacy. So this is something I really want to see. I want to see them do something great with this IP. I want a AAA experience, and I think that it would be huge if they can truly deliver on it, because we don't have a AAA Game of Thrones. We have King's Road coming out, which is a mobile experience also on PC, and I've played it and it's fine, but that is not what I was looking forward to as far as like a Game of Thrones video game. It's really neat what it is, but it is a AA game at best, I would say. It's also a live service game to a degree with tons of microtransactions, and you can just tell it's going to be one of those games that really thrives off of the gacha aspect to a degree. So I personally would rather a, AAA Game of Thrones experience that's not centered around free-to-play models, because it's just a problem for me personally. I just can't get into a free-to-play model for these kind of games. But that is currently where that stands. Let me know if you guys would play a Game of Thrones video game, and are you a fan of the franchise? Lastly, we're going to be talking about Twisted Metal. Guys, if you remember, Twisted Metal had a game that was in development. It was supposed to launch with the TV show. It was supposed to be like this big deal. It went from being done by Lucid Games and moving over to Firesprite. Well, we have an update on it. The first alleged details of Firesprite's reboot have appeared online as part of a developer's online CV. While the developer does not mention Twisted Metal directly, they refer to a Firesprite project known as Project Copper, described as a third-person vehicular action combat game based on a classic IP owned by PlayStation. According to the description, the game had third-person shooter mechanics wrapped with third-person vehicle combat with the objective of being the last one standing. The developer also uploaded blurred images of the game showing third-person shooting, which I will have up on screen for you. And this is pretty much through and through a Twisted Metal game. You look at these screenshots in the description, a classic PlayStation IP, you know that this is Twisted Metal. It's just so obvious that it is. And how do I feel about this in particular? I think that it's tough to say if this would have worked or if it would have done well without actually seeing gameplay and without actually feeling the gameplay mechanics. But I do think that, there might have been room where this could have garnered a bit of attention and a bit of a community. Twisted Metal is a classic. I think a lot of people who grew up playing Twisted Metal or had Twisted Metal in their lives, at least to a degree as far as their gaming experiences, would have probably enjoyed this. Now, would it have been enough to make it lucrative and worth the effort? It's hard to say, but it's interesting that they ended up going with a third-person vehicular action combat game, but on top of that, making it a third-person shooter as well. The third-person vehicular action combat game is pretty expected given the IP, but being able to get out and also turning into a third-person shooter, I don't know if that would have been as... I guess it would have revolutionized the series. As far as I know, you could never do that in a Twisted Metal game. If I'm wrong, definitely let me know. But as far as the games that I played, I think going back to Twisted Metal Black, you couldn't do that. So unless this is something, that would have really clicked with people, I don't see this project being a big success or being successful enough for Sony to be like, yeah, this was worth it. We're going to keep working on this game. So it looks like the whole live service push they pulled back on it. And this is definitely one of those games that got cut. And it kind of makes sense because it sounds like it wasn't one of these games that would have done very well. And I would rather them not drop another game that, would flop for them. I would rather them put those efforts towards something new, because what's the point in, rebooting a game and having it come back and it just flops face first? I mean, the only thing I could see being in its favor is that it's a classic IP and a name that a lot of people know, and that would definitely drive initial sales for sure. And if the gameplay was there and the loop was there, then a lot of people would probably jump on. But that's the big risk factor there. Let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments. If you are excited about a potential Twisted Metal game in the future, or if you're glad they canceled this particular one. Now let's move on to the comment of the day. As always, remember, if you leave a comment, you could be featured in the next video. Today's comment comes from @NewtsGaming5517, who says, "People like me originally got an S referring to a Series S, because of potential Fable, Gears, and old Halo. But nah, it's all coming to PlayStation anyway. And yeah, I think that's a reality that a lot of people are facing, is that they got a Series S, they got a Series X, hoping to experience exclusive games like Fable, Halo, Gears of War, Forza, all the other in-house Xbox Studios games that they expected to be exclusive. And we can even subtract Bethesda games and Activision Blizzard games from that, you know, assuming they would have kept those third-party anyway. And now they're looking at these games not staying exclusive to the platform. And a lot may wonder, well, why does that matter? Well, if you go and invest in a platform thinking there's going to be exclusive experiences because, well, Microsoft sold you that promise of that being the case, now you're looking like, well, what happened? I feel like I may have been cheated in a way, right? And I think that's a very valid way to feel because, well, if you went out and you purchased their platform in the hopes of their promise coming to fruition, it doesn't happen, and you're like, well, I could have just gone and got a PS5 and been able to experience their games, plus PlayStation 5 exclusives. On top of that, looking at PlayStation VR and having a better build of games, and also having some third-party games just not making it to Xbox due to the Series S being the problem. And now you're looking at it and saying, well, instead I got this platform, and not only did they not deliver on that promise, I also didn't get to experience these other titles. So it's a real problem, and Newt's Gaming here is definitely coming from a very, very realistic perspective, a perspective that exists and that probably more people than you think are experiencing. And there are some people who aren't privy to everything happening in the games industry. They might be super casuals, but eventually they will know and find out by word of mouth, and they probably won't be enticed to go get that next Xbox. Of course, we're going to have to find out what that piece of hardware is, as we don't have enough information about it. But I do think it's going to be something that a lot of people think about. Like, if these games are not going to be exclusive to your platform, if they're going to be on the PlayStation platform, it begs the question, should you even bother getting another Xbox? And of course, that decision is ultimately up to you as a consumer. Is that the platform you want to invest your money in? In my opinion, it makes it very hard to validate your purchase. It makes it very hard to entice you to go get that Xbox. But time will tell. We'll see what happens with the next generation of Xbox hardware. Are people going to go out and buy it? We'll definitely find out, that's for sure. And this will definitely make or break Xbox hardware for the future. If this next piece does not do it for them, and the investment of their time and research and development is not paying off, they probably will just walk away from the hardware space as far as creating consoles and things like that go. But that is all I have for you guys in today's video. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and share the video to help grow our community. I thank you all for watching. Take care.